All right, let's make this fellow dance. We're going to start by loading a selection that I've saved in the image. Select, load selection. And I've got the legs, which will make move. I'll click OK, and you'll see the marching ants, that is their technical term. And I'll use Layer, New, Layer via Copy. This, if I click the eye next to the background layer, isolated the legs on their own layer. And I've double-clicked to name it legs. Now I'll turn back on the background and hide the legs layer and click on the word background so that the background layer is active. What we need to do before we can make this leg bend is remove the legs where they are so we can use the legs layer on top. So let's go back to Select, Load Selection, still on the legs channel, and click OK. I'm going to cheat by filling with white. There we go. I'll deselect by hitting Command D or Control D. I'll click on the legs layer and hit the eye icon to turn it on. And now we'll use the quite astounding Puppet Warp under the Edit menu, Puppet Warp. This now takes place directly on canvas, and I'm going to put a pin here at this hip to keep it still, a pin at this hip to keep it still, one pin at the knee where I want it to bend, and then finally I'll click on the bottom of his foot and drag down. And I'll press Return or Enter to commit to this. You can also click the check mark to commit. And I just love making him dance by hitting Command Z or Control Z. I kind of want to sing a can-can right now. But that is how to get precisely the image you want if the shutter just didn't capture the leg there, and that's the overall bend and shape you're looking for this photo for your design needs. Let's try it on a different image. I've cleaned this painting of Botticelli's Venus a little bit, but now we're going to make her more modest. So I've got a selection of the arm saved for you. Select, Load Selection, Arm. And instead of doing Layer, New, Layer via Copy, in my head I always say Jump to a new layer, because the shortcut is Command J or Control J on Windows. And if I hide the background and double-click on Layer 1, I could name that Arm. I'll hide the Arm layer, turn back on the background, and click the word Background so it's active. To wipe out the original arm in the image, I'm going to use the Patch tool. And with the Patch tool, I'll simply make a rough selection around the hand. It's okay to be very loose about this. In fact, load selection might be too precise, grabbing the hand that I saved for you. And I'll just drag it to an area where I have solid skin, somewhere on her belly. If I don't like this texture that it picked up, I can keep dragging and replacing it with other areas. Notice that when I let go, it even contrast adjusts. And I'll zoom in with Command plus or Control plus, and I'll get rid of just this little bit. There is an actual line here in the image behind the arm, but I want to remove most of where it was originally. And if I need to do any further cleanup, I can, but we'll let it go. I'll turn back on the arm layer, click on the arm layer, and choose Edit, Puppet Warp. And with Puppet Warp, I want to ground her arm. I call this a grounding pin because I don't want it to move. I'll put a pivot point on her wrist, and any one of these fingers should work for moving it down. I'll click once, and then click and drag to make the Venus a bit more modest. I'll press Return or Enter to accept it, and you could use Command Z or Control Z to see before and after. So you can notice there's a little bit of a shadow on the original layer underneath. I could do more puppet warping. Edit, Puppet Warp. And sometimes the grid is distracting, this mesh, so I'll turn off the mesh. That way I could see a visual preview as I move. The elbow moved a little bit too much, so I'll click once and put a pin there and slide it up. So this takes some practice time and some finesse to really get it perfect. But my goal with these exercises is not for perfection, just to show you that it can be done. That's close enough to perfect, so I think I'll press Return or Enter to accept it, Fit in Window, and now we have a more modest Venus. But this is a great technique if you have a wonderful shot, but there's a line or an arm that just isn't quite in the right position. This always makes me think of the television show America's Next Top Model, where they say everything looks fabulous, but if her arm was only moved here, or if the leg was just bent slightly. Now you could take that outstanding shot and bend it in any direction you'd like. As long as you isolate the limb or object you'd like to move, you can use Edit Puppet Warp to get some really outstanding effects.